Guys, if you're ever in Eastern Tennessee, you really should come and check out Smoky Mountain Knife Works. Check out their showroom. It's pretty awesome. I know the main thrust of the channel is shooting. We do talk about knives some, and this is a really great place to stop in. And friendly people, they got cool stuff. Well worth a look. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Sun's out, guns out today. I want to talk to you about a book, or rather about an author and his books. The author is named James Morgan Ayres. This is one of his books. It's called Survival Knives. The book that I know best from him is called The Tactical Knife, and it's available in a first edition and a second edition. I prefer the first edition, but the two are very similar, so if you get either one, it ought to be quite good. He's written several books on firearms and shooting, on knives, on survival gear and survival skills, or bushcraft skills, that sort of thing. And actually, he chose, for the cover of the book, he chose the Spyderco Military, which was one of his favorites, and it is a full flat ground blade. And I carried one of those for a long time, and I was very happy with it. It's one of the full flat ground Spydercos that I liked, although the one I got, it's not an inexpensive knife. It's a fairly pricey knife. The one I got had very uneven bevels on it. So not Spyderco's finest hour. And also on here is a picture of a Mora knife. And I think that's one of Ayres' sons. His sons will sometimes pop up in his books and photos. If you need somebody to pose for a photo, you'll see his son sometimes in the books. But he's got all kinds of interesting advice on outdoor skills and bushcraft skills, survival skills. He's a guy who, in 1963, he was about 18 years old. He joined the Army. He joined the 82nd Airborne. Very quickly moved into 7th Special Forces, I believe. Anyway, he will tell you that he was not a Green Beret, because a Green Beret is a hat. It's not a person. But here's one of his knives, and I guess that's one of his berets. But he would call Special Forces soldiers sneaky Pete's or snake eaters, but he was one of those in the Vietnam era. And then after he left the Army, he had a very interesting career, and he's written some about it in his books, about as much as he can, I guess. He was, in essence, a spy. He was hired by the State Department to go all over the world and either train like indigenous guerrilla troops, that sort of thing, in different parts of the world, different developing countries, or he was hired for clandestine operations. He and his Special Forces friends, former Special Forces, were sent around the world, and they would make contact with agents in other countries and pass information or what have you. Kind of interesting stuff, although the stories that Ayres tells, here he is. He's in a shelter that he's made. He's got a little fire going. The stories that Ayres tells are funny and they're interesting, but they're not full of James Bond kind of exploits. Either the things that he did really didn't amount to anything all that exciting. It was just kind of routine stuff, or the interesting stuff he's not allowed to talk about. I don't know which. But he's got some interesting and funny stories about himself and other guys who were former Special Forces and who went all over the world, who went to, I think there was one story in Haiti, there was one in France. These guys during the 70s, in the sort of Cold War era, were going around and posing as American tourists or American students or what have you, and infiltrating anti-American groups or looking for evidence of anti-American activities, that sort of thing. And a lot of the stories are pretty comical. Frequently they would get found out and then they'd have to make a quick escape, and sometimes rely on, it was just in the context of the knife book for the most part, they'd rely on their knives sometimes to help them escape. Not getting in what we might think of as a traditional knife fight or knife duel, but hey, that guy's trying to kill me, and if I give this guy a little cut and this guy a little cut, oh, they'll move aside and then I can run out the door. Guy's not looking to stand there and fight with his knife. He's looking to make a hole so he can get out. He's got more than one story like that. Or a story in which he's got to use his knife to escape from a burning building. He just coincidentally went to meet a contact, I think this was in Manila in the Philippines. Went to meet a contact, and while they were having dinner, there was a grease fire in the kitchen. And he thought, oh, this guy is super valuable to the State Department. They would not be happy if he got burned up in a fire here. They don't care about me, but they care about him. So he grabbed the dude and just hauled him out, hauled him downstairs, and discovered that the steel fire doors had been chained shut, and he had to use his Randall knife to cut a hole so they could escape it. Not just the two of them, but all those other diners as well. It's an interesting story. It's a fun story. And again, it's not what you would generally see in a James Bond movie. It's just how it is sometimes in the life of a spy. He doesn't use the word spy, but that's essentially what we're talking about. Anyway, but he's got this very good book. He's got several very good books. I definitely recommend The Tactical Knife if you want to learn more about knives or bushcraft skills or survival skills or just hear some interesting stories. He's got a bunch of them, a bunch of really good ones. He's a guy who grew up in the Midwest and spent a lot of time outdoors camping and hiking, and I don't think he's worked as a spy in a very long time. He has primarily made his living as a writer and traveling around the world and doing travel writing, and the photographs in the books are full of photographs, and they're very good photographs. He's quite a photographer, and he and his wife have just traveled the world, a lot in Eastern Europe and a lot in the Middle East, but other places too. I know he's done a lot of traveling in South America. His Spanish is quite good, and mine is not. As you know, if you've seen a couple of my videos in which I speak Spanish or try to. But yeah, he's a guy who's got friends kind of in every country, and he likes backpacking around Europe and just seeing stuff and having adventures. He's an old man now. I think he's in his 80s. But the last time I talked to him, he was just a few years ago. He was, before COVID, was still traveling a great deal. He spent most of his time out of the country. Last time I talked to him, he wasn't traveling as much. And I actually sent him an email recently, and I didn't hear back from him, so I'm kind of worried. But yeah, he spent most of the last 40 years probably just traveling around the world and sometimes sleeping outdoors and having a really good time. And, you know, stop into a little village somewhere and get some of the local cheese, some of the local bread, bottle of wine, and have a picnic and maybe make a fire under the stars, and apparently having a very, very good time in his life and seeing old ruins and new nightclubs and anything you can imagine anywhere in the world, and making lots of friends along the way and testing a lot of knives. He's written for knife magazines, he's written for Blade magazine, and formed a lot of opinions about knives, and he's willing to share that and to share his expertise also. So yeah, I highly recommend checking out his books. He's very down to earth. For instance, I can't quote it exactly from memory, but I'll get it close. He has one paragraph basically on knife care. The knife care section of the book is, if your knife is dirty, wash it. And if it's wet, dry it. And if it's made of carbon steel and it might rust, put some oil on it. There, that's all you need to know about knife care. And then he goes on to talk about maybe the care of leather sheaths and things like that. But for the most part, knife care is fairly simple, and he keeps it simple. And he's very down to earth about what kind of knives he likes and how to use them and so on. He recommends, in some cases, some very expensive knives that are really fancy. Some of them are handmade from American Bladesmith, Master Smiths. And those are some of his favorites. And then some of his favorites are very inexpensive, mass-produced knives. And he says, hey, if you don't have a lot of money, you can still get a really good knife. Here's what you do. So he's got terrific advice for people who are wealthy, want to spend a lot of money on knives, and people who are very working class and don't have a lot of money to spend. And anyway, they're all terrific books. They're available online. You can find them used. They're not expensive. Some of them may be out of print now, but I don't think any of them are really that hard to find. His books on firearms are mostly geared toward like novice shooters, people, sort of a 101, how to figure out what you're doing there. So for most of my viewers, maybe not that useful, although I found them useful for like teaching other people. They give me some hints on, hey, for people who are newbies and they're not really that familiar with shooting or what have you. Here's some things maybe you didn't think about that they would need to know. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. But he kind of takes the same approach to knives. He doesn't assume that you know a whole lot, which I didn't when I started reading his books. And he's just got a wonderful writing style that's fun to read. Check him out. Give him a shot.